Okay. So first off, I want to ask you what's your name and your birthday.
My name is Mr. Rodriguez, first name Marvin. My birthday is September 21st, 1979.
Okay. How was your life before serving in the military?
My life was pretty good, actually. I always thought of myself as being goal oriented. I always knew I was going to go to college. I always thought I was going to go to top-notch university. Of course, but I wound up not going to the university of my choice, but I wound up in a good place. And before serving, I thought I was going to go off to college and, get a career, and that was it. That's what I thought.
What encouraged you to serve for our country?
Uh, the idea that I needed money for college. I applied for college, and I received my financial aid award letter, and I was short about 4,000 from what I needed to attend there to what it actually cost. And I was short $4,000. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a job. My mom was a single mom. I didn't know where I was going to get $4,000. And I asked my friend, and I said, hey, I don't know what's going on with college. I'm short money. And she's like, hey, you know what? She said, the Marine Corps is offering a $50,000 scholarship if you are interested. And I was like, $50,000? What? And I walked over to my recruiter's office. Mind you, I always badmouthed the military. I always thought that joining the military and being part of the military was foolish and stupid. And that's what you always hear me say. But that day, I walked my happy butt to the recruiter, and I talked to him. I signed up, and only after I signed up did I ask him, hey, how about that $50,000 scholarship? And he's like, in order to qualify, you have to be in active duty, and you have to have other qualifications and meet other requirements, and you don't meet them. And I was like, oh. But I had signed up already, and I didn't want to go back on my word, so I decided to stay.
When did you serve?
I served from 1998 all the way to 2004.
How was your experience in training?
In training, I hated it. I honestly hated being in the military. It wasn't. It was something I felt that I had to do because, again, I needed something from it. But in retrospect, I wish I had approached it differently, and I think my experience would have been different. Going into boot camp, it was rough. It was, boot camp was physically wasn't demanding for me, but psychologically, because of all the stuff that you have to do, and other people decide what it is that you're doing. Every one of your moves is controlled, and people get to tell you what to do. That's not me. I mean, the only person who's ever gotten to tell me what to do has been my mom, right? And I had enough of that, and that's why I was going off to college. But even after getting out of boot camp, that's what it was. I had to follow. It was a certain discipline. I was always on schedule. There was always something to get done, and it wasn't me. So I had a hard time with it.
How was life like when you were on base?
When I was on base, it was again, it was me missing home. Every time I saw myself on the base, I was like, man, I wish I was at home, because I've always been a homebody. I've always been family oriented. I always wanted to be around my mom, my sisters, my girlfriend at the time. To be honest with you, the best experience I had in the military to this day, and people find it weird, is when I was at war. Because when you're at war, people don't tell you what to do. Or if they tell you to do is we're doing this together, because, right, you're under stressful situations. You don't want to put more stress on someone else, right, other than the one they already have.
Did your experience in the military influence your thinking about the war or about military in general?
My experience with war was, what I got to see was the nasty way we could behave toward other human beings. That's what I took from war. Sometimes wars are justified, especially if you're defending other people's human rights. But sometimes we just go into a war because it's in our interest, financial, economic interest, and those are the wars that we don't want to fight, because if you have a sense of principle, there are certain things that you're not willing to do. I was young at the time. Nowadays, I probably wouldn't go into a war, right? Unless it was something that I really believed in. But the war that I fought in, it was the war against Iraq. It was that war was not one thing I believe in.
This is a question you don't have to answer, but do you want to talk about some of the people you met when you were serving?
Yeah, I made some of my best friends when I was in the military. To this day, we still hang out. We still go out to dinner. We still go out to lunch. We have drinks. We just spend time together. The bonds and the friendships you build when you're at war, when you're in the military, they stay with you forever. These are people you're always going to think about. And to be honest with you, to me, they're like my brothers. And that's how I treat them.
Although you had to take the service seriously, did you somehow find a way to entertain yourself with your friends in the military?
All the time. You have no choice but to entertain yourself. Because it's military life is stressful and there's a monotony to it. It's tedious. It's annoying at times. So the best thing you can do in order to stay sane is make not a mockery, but make jokes out of it. Right? So most of the time, my friends and I, we found ourselves joking around. Jokes that in the civilian world, they wouldn't fly, right? They wouldn't be as popular. But in the military, everything goes, and that's what you have. You make parody out of your situation. So instead of suffering and complaining, you can complain, but at the same time joke about it. So that's how it was.
What'd you do when you came back?
When I came back, I still remember the day I came back. I remember getting off the bus. The bus picked us up from the airport where we were dropped off. The bus took us into base, and at the base, the entire family got to wait for you. So as the bus is pulling up, you see all these parents and family members waiting on their son or daughter, brother, sister. And I remember the bus approaching my family, and I got up and I realized that my mom, my sisters, my brothers were there, and my girlfriend was there at the time. And I remember as I get up and my brother sees me, he starts crying. So I think it put it in perspective of how that when you go off to war, you're not the only one sacrificing something for the country. Your family is. And they get to live and experience the same stress as you do, but it's even worse for them because they have no clue what it is that's going on. Everything they hear from the news, right? They're not there firsthand. So I feel that to the families it's tougher, and it's a bigger. Sometimes I think it's even a bigger sacrifice for families than it is for the actual person fighting the war.
When you were serving, did you still have a way to keep in touch with your family?
Yeah, when we were activated and I was at Camp Pendleton, it was every weekend I came home. It was like a job. During the week I worked, and then the weekend I took the weekend off and I'd come home and spend it with my family. But when I was at war, it was all letters because it was too far. Right? That was before the cell phones that weren't as common as they are now. We had satellite phones, and sometimes we got to use them, but it was rare. But the communication was through writing letters.
Did you see any people treat you different when you came back?
Yeah, people are very very thankful. Like people go out of their way to say, hey, thank you for your service. When we were coming back, that's when you got a lot of that. Of course, you have people who are very anti-military, and they're gonna give you the evil eye when they see you. But for the most part, I experienced a lot of people being grateful and being kind.
You know how you said that you would go to war? How did you handle the traveling? Like the stress about traveling, how did you handle it?
When I was off at war, I kept to myself, which is not what you're supposed to do, right? It's not what you're supposed to do. I kept to myself a lot of the time, especially when we were getting ready the month leading up to the war. I became depressed, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. All I wanted to think was home. I wanted to think about my family, and everything that kept playing in my mind was like, am I ever going to see them again? Am I going back home? Those are the things that go through your mind. I don't know if that was the best way to handle it, but in retrospect, that's what helped me cope with what I was going through. Yeah, of course, I also cried too a couple times because you're scared. Leading up to it, you're scared. And not for yourself. Like, I really wasn't scared to lose my life. I was afraid to not be able to see my family ever again. That was very scary to me.
Did you use your benefits as a veteran?
Yeah, there's a few benefits. Education benefits are not as good as they hype them up. But there are other benefits when you become a veteran, a war veteran, or just a veteran in general. You can take advantage of home loans. You get health care, free health care. Those benefits I take advantage of. Like, for example, you could buy a home with low interest and no money down. I took advantage of that because, hey, it's just a benefit that's there for people like me.
We want to know your opinion about the American foreign policy.
The American foreign policy, that's too long to discuss, but I think I was telling another group, I think we get involved in other people's business too often. And I think instead of helping out the world, I think that creates more conflict. Yeah, I know sometimes the U.S. thinks of themselves, and that's what they talk about. We're the policemen of the world. We protect human rights. We defend those that can't defend themselves. But at the end of the day, sometimes we fight wars just because it's profitable. Someone's going to make money off that war, and that's how we fight it. And that's kind of hypocritical. Right? But at the same time, you're doing that, but at the same time, you're telling those people who are very patriotic, you're telling them, hey, we're doing it because we want people around the world to be safe. That's what we sell to our patriots. We sell them to that. If people buy into that, and that's you believe that you're doing the right thing. But at the end of the day, the motive behind it is not really that. It's other people have hidden agendas.
Okay, so I have a few more questions on foreign policy. And I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on increase of spending in military?
We spend too much money on the military, I think. Yeah, you have those hawks, they call them, those political hawks, or the people that are all about conflict. These guys want more money in the military. I think the money we spend on the military, I'm not saying disband or get rid of the military. I'm just saying spend responsibly in the military. And the extra money that you're using for the military, you could use it for other social programs, right? You could use them for public education. You could use them for health care. Those are the things that we could use. It would allow us to be a better society. It would allow us to be more secure too, because people who are healthy, people who are educated, tend to think differently, right? And they're less likely to get involved in somebody else's business.
What is your stance on chemical weapons?
They should never be used. Chemical weapons should never be used.
And drones?
Drones.
Well, usually it's like a privacy issue.
Yeah, it is,
so-
and that's what I was gonna go with, the privacy issue. Drones, the way the way people are using them nowadays, we opened that door when we decided to use drones in our wars against Afghanistan and terrorism, right? So now that's the price we have to pay for making it available to the public.
What would your advice be for someone who would want to join the military?
For a young person asking about the military and wanting to join the military, I always say, make sure that that's what you want to do. Make sure that there's something you're doing because you want to give something to your country, not because you want to get something out of it. That's the mistake I made. I went into the military because I wanted to get something out of it, and I realized that it was the wrong thing to do. Of course, in retrospect, I don't regret it, but I went into it with a different approach. If you want to give something to your country, perfect. But don't go into the military because you want to get something. You want something in return. Don't go into the military because you think you have no other way out, like you have no other goals or other purpose. Go into the military because you really want to do it.
Any other questions? Well, that's it. Thank you for doing the interview with us.
You're welcome.
That's it.
That's it.
All right. Okay, girls.